and there's different ingredients in each food that helps different parts of the body, and you need the whole picture to help the body. You can't just eat the same foods every day, because then you'll be lacking in, some part, like something for your eyes or a part of your brain that you need different nutrients. So you have to get a big variety of food to eat. So the frontal lobe, I think we've talked about this before, but we have different lobes in our brain. And so the frontal lobe of our brain is the part of our brain that is actually the spiritual part, people have called it. The spiritual or the reasoning part. This is a type of the brain that says, when somebody asks you to do something and you know it's wrong, this is the part of the brain that you can say, I'm not going to do that, that's wrong. And this is also, God communicates to us through our brain. He doesn't communicate to us through other parts of our body necessarily, but it's through our brain. And so when we eat certain foods and we put different things in God's body, then it affects the brain. And it affects how we reason, and it also affects how we deal with other people. And so it's important that we think about these things. Tea, coffee, tobacco, and alcohol we must present as sinful indulgences. We cannot place on the same ground meat, eggs, butter, cheese, and such articles placed upon the table. These are not to be borne in front as the burden of our work. The former tea, coffee, tobacco, beer, wine, and all spirituous liquors are not to be taken moderately, but discarded. When somebody told me these things, it was a couple years ago, I almost passed out. Because I said, what am I supposed to eat? I'm like, I will die. And that's sad for me to think that, because I'm in college studying health science. We're looking at the science behind health, and even we didn't know. My professors don't know this stuff. In college, at one of the highest levels you can go of education and nutrition, they have no idea. They just don't know this stuff. They honestly don't know, because we would ask them. And everyone thinks that you can have anything you want just in moderation. But that's so the devil. Devil thinks that you have a little evil here and a little evil there. Just as long as you don't have it in large amounts, you're okay. But that's not true. A little evil will still destroy you. It might take longer, but it will still destroy you. Persons who have accustomed themselves to a rich, highly stimulating diet have an unnatural taste. And they cannot at once relish food that is plain and simple. It will take time for the taste to become natural and for the stomach to recover from the abuse it has suffered. But those who persevere in the use of wholesome food will, after a time, find it palatable. Its delicate and delicious flavors will be appreciated, and it will be eaten with greater enjoyment than can be derived from unwholesome dainties. And the stomach in a healthy condition, neither fevered nor overtaxed, can readily perform its task. I used to be a personal trainer, and I used to coach. I coached gymnastics, and I coached weightlifting. And when I would be training someone, I would always remember, when they first started working out, the first 2 weeks is the hardest part. Most people never stick with it, because if you can't make it through the first 2 weeks, then you'll give up. Because it takes roughly about 2 weeks for your body to change from all the things that you've been doing to it, and it takes that long for you to grow new taste buds. So for the food to actually taste good, you have to stick in there for a couple weeks. And so most people would, it would be really hard to train people the first couple weeks, because you're trying to explain these things to them, and you're just every day encouraging them, one more day, because when you change your diet, you think, well, this is how I'm going to feel the rest of my life. But that's so not true. I don't eat any of these things that I used to eat anymore, and I am just as satisfied, if not more satisfied, now when I eat healthy food as opposed to when I ate unhealthy food. That's why sometimes we have to trust in the Creator, that if He says this is the diet we should eat, we should just have faith, and then after we stick with it for a period of time, we'll see how easy it is, and we don't even crave these other foods. I don't even crave any of that stuff that I used to eat, which is a miracle in itself. So let's talk about meat, and we're talking about flesh foods, not just food itself. So Leviticus chapter 11, you can go and read this later, we're not going to go into all of it, but it talks about clean and unclean. And one of the main things it talks about is pork. A lot of us have heard that pork is bad for us, and it definitely is bad for us. And God gives us things in the Bible to protect us, once again, to protect us from these things that hurt us. One thing I found out about pigs is that they don't sweat. And so when a pig is killed and you're eating pork, the parasites from the diseases they have stay in their body in the meat because they don't sweat it out like other animals do. And we sweat, we sweat all our toxins out. But one big misconception people have is that you can cook out all the disease and parasites out of food, and that's not true. You can cook out a portion of disease and parasites out of food, but you can't cook out 100% of it. And this has been proven because when they do autopsies on people that ate pork every day, they can see all the parasites in their brain. And they can see all the parasites throughout their body where they've taken over. And it's just, you just can't, and it's the same way with meat. You cannot cook out all the diseases and bad things out of these things. It's just impossible. You just can't do it. But one thing the Bible does tell us is that we are never to eat blood. It says, for it is the life of all flesh. The blood of it is for the life thereof. Therefore I said unto the children of Israel, ye shall eat the blood of no manner of flesh, for the life of all flesh is the blood thereof. Whosoever eateth it shall be cut off. Now the Bible does say that eating meat is a clean meat. It says that a cow is a clean meat. But however, it does not say that we should eat blood. And I've never actually met anyone that doesn't eat the blood in the meat because the blood gives it the flavor. And so, if you were to eat it without the blood, it would be extremely dry, and I think it's like beef jerky when you take all the blood out of it. It's not moist in these things. Now, meat was allowed for a time because after Noah came off the ark, there was no vegetation. And so God allowed meat to be eaten for a time just for survival. But we have other testimonies to show that this wasn't going to last forever. And so this is from the World Cancer Research Fund. Has just completed a detailed review of more than 7,000 clinical studies concerning links between diet and cancer. Its conclusion is rocking the health world with startling bluntness. Processed meats are too dangerous for human consumption. Consumers should stop buying and eating all processed meat products for the rest of their lives. Processed meats include bacon, sausage, hot dogs, sandwich meat, packaged ham, pepperoni, salami, and virtually all red meat used in frozen prepared meals. They are usually manufactured with a carcinogen ingredient known as sodium nitrate. This is used as a color fixer by meat companies to turn packaged meats a bright red color so they look fresh. Unfortunately, sodium nitrate also results in the formation of cancer-causing nitrosamines in the human body. So even the secular science can even look and say these things are just killing people and they're giving people cancer. There are many who feel that they cannot get along without flesh foods, but if these would place themselves on the Lord's side, resolutely resolved to walk in the way of His guidance, they would receive strength and wisdom as did Daniel and his fellows. They would find that the Lord would give them sound judgment. Many would be surprised to see how much could be saved for the cause of God by acts of self-denial. The small sums saved by deeds of sacrifice will do more for the upbuilding of the cause of God than larger gifts will accomplish that have not called for denial of self. Again, self-denial is so difficult, but that's what Jesus has always taught us. If we can deny ourselves, we can help so many more people if we're not focused on ourselves. So what about dairy products? When I stopped eating meat, it actually was not difficult. I can honestly say that stopping eating meat, I thought was going to be just terrible, but it actually wasn't. After a couple of days, I didn't crave it anymore. But I will say that not eating dairy was one of the most difficult things I've ever done. I remember telling someone about the health message when I heard about all these things. And at that time, I just stopped eating meat. I thought, there's no way I can stop eating dairy. That's impossible. That's just, I don't know who can do that, but it's not me. And I remember they came to me that night and they went vegan. And they changed their whole family to go vegan, this person that I told. And I just felt terrible. She came back and said, no, you can't eat dairy anymore. And I was just like, man, the Lord had showed her immediately that it would help her if she didn't eat these things. And I just walked away from that and I thought, man, what a rebuke. I'm telling her about health and then she comes around and tells me I need to change, That was so difficult. So different things that are in dairy products. Casein is actually the protein that comes from dairy. Casein has been proven in many studies to cause cancer. You can actually increase the level of cancer in your body or decrease it by how much dairy you put into your body because of this protein casein. And when I saw that, that really made me think about, what I'm putting into God's body. And steroids, now they pump cows full of steroids, and when the steroid goes into the meat, it also goes into the milk of the cow. You can't separate the two. Anything that goes into it goes into the milk, and then it goes into your body. And again, you can't kill these things that are in it. It goes into your body, and it affects you, and it causes cancer. Diseases, you can't take out all the diseases. And cholesterol, I would say that's one of the biggest things. What's the number one cause of death in this country? It's actually sin. But other than that, it is heart attack. Because our hearts, we have valves in our hearts, right? And when they fill up with cholesterol from food, then we have heart attacks because the blood can't flow anymore. And then we get these surgeries, these bypass surgeries, where they take a vein from our leg and they put it and make a new valve so that blood can run through that. But if you don't change your diet, then you're just going to have the same heart attack a couple months later. These surgeries help us in this exact moment, but they don't take care of the cause. The cause is what we eat, and the cause is that we're eating food with cholesterol in it. So what about processed sugar? Once I quit eating dairy, I came along good old processed sugar, and that was even harder than not eating dairy. But again, if we ask God to give us strength, we cannot do these things. So what am I talking about when I say processed sugar? Ice cream, cookies, donuts, cakes, sodas, energy drinks, sweet tea. You don't have a lot of sweet tea here, but that's very popular in the South. People they drink a lot of sugar and then they add a little tea to it. That's how they do it in the South. And, this is another thing it's just killing God's body. Right before I came here, we were at a church, and this guy did a seminar on a diabetes seminar. And you can reverse type 2 diabetes within a matter of 2 to 3 weeks. And everybody that went through that seminar, they got off taking all the insulin, they got off all these things. And we've been telling these things to people, and they're just floored. People that have never had hope. People that have just lost their legs and all these things to diabetes. If you don't put processed sugar into your body, you don't get diabetes. It's just that easy. It's not genetic. You can the genetics that play into this, you can either get diabetes or you can't. That's where the genetics play into it. But diabetes and different things that are caused by processed sugar is a lifestyle disease. You're not just born with all these things unless your parents just ate extremely unhealthy. But my parents, every single person in my family has had cancer on both sides except for me. And to me, that just shows you the power of the Lord. And it's not because God miraculously healed me. It's because I changed my diet, and now I eat God's diet, and I don't eat the world's diet. Think about that for a second. Everybody on both sides of my family has had cancer, and I haven't. And it's not genetics, it's a lifestyle disease. They choose to eat this way, and they choose not to change. And they suffer for it, and I don't suffer for it. I'm perfectly healthy because I eat the way the Lord wants me to eat. By His grace and by His power I do it. I don't do it by myself. But I have no diseases, and they all have diseases. So Mike Tyson, if you're not familiar with this person, he was he devoted his life to fighting. He was actually a boxer. And one thing that just blew me away was I just think about aggression. When you eat meat and these different things, you're aggressive, and it's hard to be patient, and it's hard to